It's been a long and grueling year of lockdown levels since the outbreak of COVID-19 in South Africa, and the various interventions by government to save lives. The economy of the country have been better than nothing for some, unlike if things were left to waste. Well, for others, it has been a long and frustrating journey that often ended with people resorting to changing their business strategies and also trying other avenues and ideas so that they can have an income while abandoning their normal day-to-day business. And of course, others have been facing retrenchments and their businesses have shut down, being left with debts and so forth. So since many have been affected by this pandemic, let's take a moment to reflect on some issues in the country that some had to put up with since 2020 began in March and up until today. So we are joined by Kabelo Ncholo, who is CEO of Yourself Management. Kabelo, good afternoon to you and welcome to our program.
Thank you for the opportunity, Colin. Let me greet your viewers at home as well. Thank you.
Well, Kabelo, let's just take a recap on the kind of business you are in as a young person and the impact that the lockdowns and COVID-19 had on your operations, to an extent that when you were brought to the lowdown, you had to sit back and reflect. Take us through that.
I think it's without a doubt, Colin, that in fact the country, both for us entrepreneurs, people that are in business and employees as well, we are starting to get a real feed in terms of the impact of what COVID has brought to us, because of it's something that we didn't anticipate. We didn't know what impact is going to be and where it's going to leave us. And after a year into this, where most businesses have lost their revenue, I mean, I'm speaking from my business as well, we are forced to restructure, having to find a ways in terms of how do you survive. Not so many small businesses, in fact, have survived. So many people have been retrenched. Even my own organization, we had to retrench people as a part of where one has to restructure the business. So it's been, I call it building a plane and fly it at the same time. Because of one, the economy has been shrinking. I'm talking from the marketing industry as well, where it was anticipated that we should be growing with about, I think, 7.8 in terms of the growth of marketing industry. And we shrinked with about 10%. And that 10% means that most people in my industry will find themselves without their business. Consumers' pattern as well have changed in terms of what type of service we are providing. People are working from home. When do you position clients in terms of marketing expenditure, out of home activations as well, due to lockdown regulations as well? You cannot run activations, and everything has changed. And it just took us back to the drawing board, where we then have to be thinking of what is a way forward. But the impact is quite visible, and the impact is felt by anybody.
So what's standing between you and your business right now is the lockdown levels. Currently, they were relaxed to about 250 people outside, like when people have to attend music festivals or events, or even places where one can resume with the activations. But would you say that this is really making a difference in terms of making up for the losses whilst you are looking forward to the relaxation, to eventually, when we have the herd immunity, perhaps we can go to lockdown level to 0?
Going back to the lockdown levels, it's better because we're coming from a dire situations whereby nothing was working. Only essential services were the ones that were effective with different levels, and we also need to also be cognizant of the fact that we are talking about lives, and going to levels where we also it accumulates us to starting to get slowly into the business or our industry or events as well. It's not like before, but at least it's accommodating the industry to start gaining the momentum. I mean, since we got from level 3 to level where we are at level 1, it's making a huge difference in terms of the businesses we're starting to get back to where it was. But we will never go back to what business used to be. And I think as entrepreneurs and as everyone, we should also make peace and accept the fact that business is not going to go back to what it used to be prior COVID-19. We need to now start what we call the new norm, which is the new normal now, where we're finding ourselves with how do we adjust with what is being given? How do we adjust with every regulations? Because it's not like an island where it's only affecting us as South African, but it's affecting the whole world. And I think we need to change our mindset as entrepreneurs and business, and in fact as professional bodies overall, because we found ourselves here, and also heal because of another thing what COVID-19 or lockdown have done to us. It's a psychological impact that we do not think, or we don't pay so much attention to it, because of a year before 2019, everything looked okay. We get into 2020 and we lost so much as people, as businesses are closed. We had to restructure our business, and most people lost their jobs and so forth. So that had some sort of psychological impact. And I think once we can deal with accepting what situation has been and what is a way forward, that will give us a bit of a way to say, okay, things are starting to work out. With level 1 and what we have, at least is giving us an opportunity to get back to the industry and start to create revenues for our different businesses.
Well, you mentioned you made a very a brave statement when you were saying that as business people you need to make peace with the old way of doing business, and you now have to embrace the new normal. Like one of the interviews that I had with one of your colleagues, he said something very interesting about keeping businesses in line with the fourth industrial revolution, the digital world, as well as online business. So he was saying that data is the new oil, so to say. So now, how does anyone who notices that people have hunger for physical events, they want to be there, and they cannot enjoy activations online or at home and all that, they want to go there. So now, how do you embrace the new normal when business has to really have a mix of both the old and the new, where now you only get the negative side of people now putting down their masks? As you know, social distancing is no longer adhered to. People can get naughty sometimes, especially when they are having their drinks. They relax and they put their guard down as far as the safety protocols of COVID-19 are concerned. So how do you then advise one to approach embracing the new normal when actually people are still reminiscent of the old?
It's a good question that you are talking about, and we also need to, I always say that, when you're in business, you also have to be cognizant of the time. And we are talking in terms of the fourth industrial revolutions, where everything is about data. Everything, I think anybody who find themselves within the IT space, this has not really have so much an impact on them, because of just in terms of this space or the timing allowed to that particular or allow that type of businesses to literally flourish. But considering the aspect, and I always say that we need to pair apple with apple, and take South Africa for an example, where we are in terms of the socio dynamics of South Africa. And when I'm talking about the socio dynamics of South Africa, we're talking about the expenditure. Not everyone has an access to data, as much as everything it's available online, but so many of our people, in fact, to have the data. It's a luxury. And that's why it then affected everything when we starting to talk of the new normal as we can do a homeschooling or online schooling. The people in the villages, people in the townships, they find themselves where they cannot provide that type of support for the young ones or the learners. And this is where we then need to understand to say how does it affect, or the new normal, how does it affect our people based in the country? We have a country that has a high unemployment rate before COVID hit, before 2020. Now we find ourselves in COVID-19, where the country had the highest unemployment rate, where people had to be retrenched as a result of COVID. Business has to restructure. Not only do business restructure, people are not earning what they used to earn. People had to reduce, where most companies, including my company, where employee have to get about 70% of what they used to earn. And when they get in 70% of what they used to earn, you don't have 70% of expenditure, or that 30% of expenditure being write off. So you find yourself in a situations whereby it's a new normal with an old habit. And what does that do to human being? That brings frustrations to human being. And the frustrations we will see with the human behavior. One, COVID has distance, or it made people not to or engage with people. And us as a country, we do not engage with one another just because of it's a social thing. It's a therapeutic thing. If you do the research, and for us as marketers to say, why do people go out? Because of people are overwhelmed in the township. People are overwhelmed with the disadvantaged environment that they find themselves with. And going out on a Stockfell societies or societal clubs that we have in the different township, we have in the different villages, and for youth that they go out to these places, it's part of therapeutic, where they will go there and have that particular fun at that particular moment. And what then they do is they forget about their current state. They forget about their unemployment and so forth. And what COVID then did, it just made everyone to be there. And with the lowering, going to level 1, with all this thing, everyone is just find themselves in that psychological stress or pressure, where they just wants to go back to normal and try to release the impact of what COVID is. And however, if we look in terms of where we are in terms of the journey of us as South Africans, business and everyone as a consumer, I would like to believe that we have adjusted to the new normal somehow. We do wear masks, and when we get to those venues, temperatures get to be checked and so forth. And the businesses, which is these venues, they actually make sure to say that let's protect everyone that comes here. Let's check you if you do have a higher temperature and so forth, so that we can try to get the business or they get the economy back to the normal. But it's actually a frustration for everyone. It's a frustration for consumer, for people. It's a frustration for the business, where you say you have this new world, and how do you match this new world whereby you don't know how to work? And it works in a country where the dynamics, it's already at a disadvantage. And then how do we bridge the gap between what we used to have or do not have with the new normal, and the new normal, which is more of an expense? You need data. We're talking on Skype. For us to have this type of an interview, you need to have like a high data, which is fiber. Not all township, they got fibers. And not every business would engage in this type of business. Most of our people, they engaged in businesses where there were interaction. And based on that, this is now where we're like, okay, with 500 people, it's better than not having people at all. Okay. And considering that if we're going to open the country and says that we're going to have 1,000 people opening to the events, now we are talking about lives, because of we know what COVID does. Everyone now, before when COVID was starting, it was a number. Now we are affected. We know someone that we have lost as a result of COVID.
All right, Kabelo.
So how do we bridge between livelihood and life?
You're right. Kabelo, thank you so much for making time. I know it's a Saturday afternoon and we had to interrupt your peaceful moment and bother you with the pain, the experiences, and walking down memory lane of the inconveniences of lockdowns and COVID-19. Well, job. We had to. Thank you so much for making time to speak to us. Well, we are speaking to the man who had his success through only a 350 rand tip. So like he has written a new book called How I Made My Dream Life with only 350 rand. And of course, thank you so much for making time to speak to us, and good luck with your business.
Okay, thank you. And I wish everyone who's getting back into business, I say that it does not look bad at all. I think the economy is warming up to us. It's about time to refresh. It's about time to restart and rethink and align ourselves. And there's a lot of opportunities. People that have lost their job, not everything is bad. I think it's also propel us as a country to start being entrepreneurial. Get away from, I've lost the job. I'll say is that it's a moment where you start to think to yourself and say, what can you do? You got an oven at home. Probably start baking cakes or whatever you are passionate about, and use your passion to make you something. Because of us as Africans, I always believe that we are creative, and we need to get from the stage where we're like, okay, things are bad, but we can make something with the very same current situations that we're at. And Colin, thank you for the opportunity to be at your show.
All right, thank you so much. And to quote him, he's saying that we are having the new normal with old habits. Yeah, quite a very insightful statement there. Kabelo Ncholo is CEO of Yourself Management.